Hello, beautiful people. I'm Chris Maddox, founder of the Wild Woman Project and Wild Woman Fest. And I'm speaking to you today because we always meet like this at new moon time. And the new moon is upon us. It arrives on July 2nd, 2019. So this moon cycle, for those of us at the Wild Woman Project, it's nearing the end of this year-long exploration we've been in called Tiny Revolutions, Unfurling the Soul of the World. So Tiny Revolutions, this whole year we have been looking at different areas of our lives, and we've been asking, what are my values here? And how are my actions? How is my behavior in alignment or not in alignment with those values? New moon by new moon, we have been making intentions around each of these little slices, these places in our life, and creating tiny changes in our everyday life. And the idea is that as a big community, 17 countries, sit together and contemplate these things, as we moon cycle by moon cycle, essentially like clean up our behavior. And by cleaning, just meaning making sure we're in integrity in every area of our life. That has a ripple out impact. And if you multiply it with all the circles happening around the world and each and every person taking seriously and sincerely asking themselves, how can I do better in these little areas of my life? How can I make small changes? Those small changes multiplied create movement and change and shift that is much larger than the tiny, initial action of the individual. We are more powerful together, right? So that's the idea. So I want to say that we are this moon cycle looking at a very essential, very important life area called home. So this new moon, astrologically speaking, falls in the sign of Cancer. Cancer is associated with home, and Cancer is really considered like the mother of the zodiac. So when we're thinking about this new moon and when we're setting intentions around this new moon time and contemplating, we can really call on the mother archetype for guidance. A healthy mother is the heart of a home, the conscience there. And that's really what the inquiry is here, is how can we have a conscience in our home lives? How can our behavior be in alignment with our values at home? So I want to start this conversation really by calling on one of my most favorite human beings that has ever walked this planet, the late, great Maya Angelou, who wrote, "The ache for home lives in all of us. The safe place where we can go as we are and not be questioned." I love that she starts that idea with the ache, because that longing for home, it's so human and so deep and so real. That longing for a place where we can be safely who we are. So I want to remind us that in the great family here on earth, there's an enormous percent of the population who is without this most essential place, where they can not only feel safe to be themselves, but do not have access to running water, have a place to cook or make a shower or shelter from the weather. It's that essential safety. So for those of us who are blessed and who are privileged enough to have a roof over our heads, no matter how modest, we're holding a tremendous amount of wealth in that. Something to be deeply grateful for. And for those of us with this privilege, to be very aware that not all of us have this privilege. And if we're calling on the mother archetype and that kind of healthy mother attunement, that doesn't feel okay to me when I tune in that way. It doesn't feel okay that there are human beings in this world without a home. It doesn't feel okay for me as an American citizen that there are children, small children, being held in cages without their most basic needs met because they themselves and their parents decided that the best option in their current situation, in their home countries, was the possibility that America offers, has offered. And we are now imprisoning these children. That doesn't feel good. That's out of alignment with my values. I don't know about you. And I know we're not all American citizens here. We can all look to our own countries, our own homes, and ask questions around this this contemplation of home and how that is and is not available to people near us. So, here at the Wild Woman Project, with this theme, which we're calling Returning Home, the idea that home can be a place, like the hope of home is a place where we can come to again and again, and that it will be shelter for us. That we will be kind to our homes and our homes will be kind to us. So here as a community here at the Wild Woman Project, we're looking at home on two levels. Number one, the individual dwelling. So whether that's a house, an apartment, a trailer, an RV, whatever your home, your individual dwelling, we're going to be diving into that, doing some inquiry. What are my values here? Is there any small changes I can make to be in integrity in my home space? And then on the other hand, we're going to be looking at our shared home on earth, that is the planet, our big home. And we're going to be asking, what are my values here? How can I be in integrity here? How can I be in right relationship here? And of course, the individual dwelling and the great big home on the planet are interdependent. So I think this is honestly one of the most important life areas that we could look at as human beings right now, is our sense of home on these levels. It's kind of like looking at the micro and the macro, the personal and the transpersonal. So let's say you have an intention to be in kindness and respect towards the planet. Where you choose to spend your money is one of the biggest places where our values show up in actions and where they really have an effect. So the difference between buying a Tyson chicken at a big box corporate supermarket or box store versus buying a chicken from a local farmer at a farmer's market or on the or in a a co-op or any other place where you can find ethical meat, that's a big choice that one can make, as one example. So we all have our edge, and no one, in this contemplation, I'm not going to tell you what to think or believe. I can't know what your values are. I can't know what your actions are. So if you show up a circle and you have you're led through, really thinking about this theme and tuning in an intuitive way to this theme, it's really up to you. No one's going to tell you how to think about it. It's really, that needs to come from your own wisdom, because we're all so different, So that's that process of asking ourselves in a very deep way, through inquiry, contemplative practice, through meditation, asking ourselves, what does home mean? How can I be in right relationship here? What are my values? What intentions do I want to make? And then making those intentions and making your little changes, your small changes in your life. Like, that is what it is to channel, wisdom and intuition into the world, into, our mundane lives, into our physical realities. That's how we unfurl the soul of the world, by listening deeply to our inner guidance and taking action. So if there are many people making tiny actions, that's huge effect. And I truly believe we have everything we need on the planet to solve our biggest problems. So if you're watching this, please tune into your wisdom and take your actions. I want to close by reading the words of Greta Thunberg, young activist, who was speaking to, she's like 15 or 16, I think, recently on the cover of Time magazine. And she's making big waves by listening to herself, assessing the reality of the situation going on with the climate crisis, and taking bold action. She's a teenager, people. So she's addressing a meeting here for the European Parliament's Environmental Committee. This is in April of 2019. She says, "Our house is falling apart, and our leaders need to start acting accordingly, because at the moment they are not. If our house was falling apart, our leaders wouldn't go on like we do today. If our house was falling apart, you wouldn't hold 3 emergency Brexit summits and no emergency summit regarding the breakdown of the climate and the environment." So if you want to look deeply at how you're living in your home and how you're living on the planet, and you want to make soulful change, I encourage you to do one of 2 things. You can show up at any of our public circles that are happening in 17 countries around the world. This is a place where you can meet with other women. You'll do meditation, you'll share, and you'll create powerful and potent intentions for the cycle ahead. For those of you who do not have a circle near you yet, or who simply want to do your own solo thing, I have created something you can download called Your New Moon Retreat. In there, you'll receive 2 things. Number 1, a meditation, where you will be led to have sort of like an experiential understanding of what we're talking about. We'll go through your relationship to home, your relationship to the earth. And then the second thing you'll receive is your New Moon magazine, which has instructions on how to make your own personal ritual, guidelines for making, a framework for intention setting, and some other ideas and quotes from people much wiser than me to just infuse your new moon with wisdom and power so that you're walking out into the moon cycle really aligned with purpose. Thank you so much for listening today. I believe that we are all family here, regardless of where you live, regardless of the individual or the invisible lines that seem to separate us. I believe that we are home and that we are family. So it's my deep, deep hope that we all